All right, today we are diving deep into addiction, and we're starting with a question that seems simple but is anything but. Is it a disease or is it a choice? We're going to explore a paradox that might just flip that whole question on its head. Let's get right into it. So this is the big one, right? This is the debate that's been raging for decades. Is it something that just happens to you, like a biological glitch in the system? Or is it about willpower, about a series of choices that lead you down a certain path? The answer, as you're about to see, is way more fascinating than a simple either or. And here is the paradox, laid out plain and simple. On one hand, you have the official medical viewpoint. Addiction is a chronic brain disease. But then, you look at the actual data on recovery and wow, up to 3/4 of people who've had an addiction just get better. A lot of them on their own, with no formal treatment at all. So how can those two things possibly be true at the same time? To figure that out, we have to go deeper into the basic wiring of every human brain. Okay, let's talk about a core mechanism that's running in your brain right now, whether you've ever struggled with addiction or not. This is for everybody. And the best way to think about it is like a seesaw in your head. See, your brain's number one job isn't to make you happy. Its job is to keep things level, to stay in balance. This neutral state called homeostasis is absolutely critical. It's the baseline that allows you to notice when something important, either good or bad, actually happens. Now, let's say you do something rewarding. It could be anything: eating a piece of chocolate, laughing at a joke, getting a paycheck, or, yes, taking a drug. Any of those things push down on the pleasure side of your internal seesaw. And for a moment, you feel good. The balance is disrupted. But your brain hates being out of balance. So what does it do? Instantly, it starts to counteract that pleasure by pushing down on the other side, the pain side. It's an automatic, brilliant, self-correcting system. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction right inside your own head. They call it the opponent process. And that pushback, that little dip toward the pain side to get back to neutral, that's what a craving is. It's that feeling of wanting more, of needing to tip the scales back over to pleasure. And here's the really crucial part. The more you do something pleasurable, the smarter your brain gets at pushing back. The opponent process gets quicker, stronger, and it lasts longer every single time. It learns. And just look at the sheer scale of that tip we're talking about. Dopamine is pretty much the universal currency for pleasure in the brain. Chocolate gives you a nice 50% bump over your baseline. But amphetamine? 1,000% increase, 1,000. Can you imagine how hard the brain have to push back on the pain side to try and level out a hit that big? So this whole pleasure-pain system leads us to a completely different way of looking at the problem. Because maybe, just maybe, this isn't a story about a broken brain. Maybe it's a story about a brain that learns. And that brings us to this incredible concept in neuroscience, neuroplasticity. All this really means is that your brain isn't fixed. It's like clay, constantly being reshaped by what you do and what you experience. This isn't a sign of damage or disease. It's the normal, healthy process behind all learning. It's how you remember anything at all. And this idea, it changes everything. What if the changes we see in the brains of people with addiction aren't a disease process hijacking the system? What if it's just the brain's natural, incredibly efficient learning system going into hyperdrive on a single target? The brain is doing exactly what it was built to do: learn and adapt. It's just learned a very destructive lesson and learned it so deeply that it starts to push everything else out. Okay, so that's the science, that's the theory. But what does this actually feel like? What does it look like in real people's lives? Let's get out of the abstract for a minute. This quote from Jacob just nails it: the double life. As the brain starts to learn and prioritize this one behavior above all else, a whole secret world gets built around it. It's more than just hiding something. It's like a whole separate identity gets created, with its own logic and its own rules, all designed to protect this deeply learned habit. So, where does this kind of learning actually happen in the brain? Well, one of the key players is a region called the orbitofrontal cortex, or the OFC. You can think of it as the brain's master calculator for desire. It takes in all the emotional data, the fear, the excitement, the potential reward, and it runs the numbers to decide, is this worth it? It turns the feeling of, I want, into an actual plan. And this quote from a man named Brian is, well, it's like a direct transmission from his OFC. You can literally hear the calculation happening. He knows there's a risk of getting caught, but the immediate reward, especially after not sleeping for days, is being valued so much higher. His brain has learned to rig the equation, to put a massive thumb on the scale in favor of right now. But here's the really hopeful part. Neuroplasticity can work in the other direction too. This is so powerful. Natalie's story shows her brain has done some new learning. After a period of recovery, she relapsed, but the drug didn't feel the same. Because now, her brain had built new, powerful connections linking that feeling not just to pleasure, but to all the pain and loss it had caused. The value calculation had changed. That is learning in action. So if we accept that addiction is a form of deep, powerful learning that's gone wrong, then it makes sense that recovery can't just be about willpower or stopping. It has to be an active process of relearning, of carving out brand new paths in the brain. And a really effective tool for this relearning process is something called radical honesty. Now, this is not about being a morally superior person. Think of it as a cognitive tool. That double life we talked about is held together by a web of lies and self-deception that hides the real link between the action and the consequence. Honesty is like a sword that cuts through all of that, forcing the brain to see the truth of the situation. And this moment from Donna, this is the sound of that sword cutting through. By speaking this simple, unvarnished truth, she completely shatters the story that was protecting her addiction. For the first time, maybe in years, the cause and effect are laid bare with no excuses. And that is the absolute first step toward learning a new way forward. So, what does this path of relearning actually look like? Well, it often starts with just stopping for a while, a dopamine fast, to let that seesaw finally come back to level. Then comes the self-awareness, learning to just watch the cravings come and go without acting on them. And finally, the big one, building a new story for yourself, a narrative where your future is way more valuable than any temporary escape from the present. And this is why all of this is so important for every single one of us. Because the brain science, that pleasure-pain seesaw, it applies to everything. We are all living in a dopamine nation. Our smartphones, our social media feeds, the endless stream of content, they are perfectly engineered delivery devices for tiny, constant hits of reward, and they are using the exact same brain pathways. And that really leaves all of us with a final question to think about. This isn't a problem for other people, it's a modern human challenge. In a world that is literally designed to keep our seesaws constantly tipping toward pleasure, which creates an ever stronger pull back toward craving, how are you going to find and protect your own balance?